The Victorian-New South Wales border has been closed for the first time in a century since July 7 to help contain the outbreak. The boundary is patrolled by New South Wales Police. A system of permits will be established to allow cross-border travel where necessary, particularly in twin towns such as Albury-Wodonga. What are the newly imposed restrictions? Why are they necessary? On July 7, the Victorian Prime Minister Daniel Andrews announced that Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire would move back to Level 3 restrictions for at least 6 weeks following a massive surge in community transmissions of coronavirus cases, including an outbreak in a high-rise block in Melbourne public housing. Can I visit my friends or family? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. You can meet up with your family or have up to 2 visitors at home. If you have got a partner living in the lockout zone, they may be one of the 2 guests. Public housing residents living in 9 tower block estates in the Flemington and North Melbourne suburbs of Melbourne, which were placed in hard lockdown of 5 days on July 4, will be subject to the same rules as the rest of the city once the testing is completed. Residents of such blocks are not permitted to leave their units for at least 5 days in nearly any conditions. The only exceptions are where, for humanitarian purposes or in an emergency, a person is given direct consent by officials to seek treatment at a medical centre or leave their home. People are not permitted to have guests either. Andrews said the police should patrol neighbourhoods, handing out citations on the spot to those outside their home for something other than the grounds specified. Other areas in Victoria. The number of visitors that you can have to your home has reduced to 5 visitors. The Victorian Health Department says you can have more than 1 set of visitors over per day, but that you should be considered and use common sense. You are allowed to have people stay over at your home. Can I have a party? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Complete lockdown is in place for the following 6 weeks. Other areas in Victoria. Up to 10 people can gather outside for recreational purposes, or to engage in activities like hiking, jogging and other non-contact sport. Can I go to a restaurant or café? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Cafes and restaurants can only open for takeaway and delivery. Other areas in Victoria. Cafes and restaurants will be allowed to seat a maximum of 20 people in any one space until July 12. Businesses will need to ensure each customer has at least 4 square meters. Can I start bringing my reusable coffee cup to the cafe again? A new contact-free initiative from responsible cafes could see many coffee shops allowing personal reusable takeaway cups allowed back in. However, this is up to individual cafes. Can I work out outdoors? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Outdoor routines are allowed, but other than that, all the open areas have been closed again. Other areas in Victoria. Gyms, yoga studios and fitness classes and indoor personal training are prohibited. Up to 20 people can gather outside for activities like hiking, jogging, bike riding, canoeing, kayaking and other non-contact sports. Outdoor boot camps of up to 20 people plus the trainer are also allowed. Can I go for a swim? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Swimming pools have been closed. Other areas in Victoria. Swimming pools will be allowed to reopen, but they could be capped to a maximum of 20 swimmers at any one time. Can I go to the library? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Libraries are closed till the lockdown ends. Other areas in Victoria. Libraries may open with restrictions. Capacity must not exceed 20 people or 1 person per 4 square meters, including staff members, whichever is lesser. Each library must have a COVID-19 safety plan. Can I let the kids loose on the playground? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Open areas are open for daily workout routines, but play areas have been closed. Other areas in Victoria. Public playgrounds will be open again. Physical distancing and hygiene should be practiced with little ones. Can I go back to the office? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. You are allowed to go to work if it is within your lockdown zone, though working from home is highly recommended. You can't work outside the lockdown zone, so you can't travel outside. Other areas in Victoria. Each business owner can make decisions about what makes the most sense for their situation. Employers must allow employees to work from home where it is reasonably practical to do so. Can I leave Melbourne? There are no restrictions on how far you can travel within the state, unless you live in Greater Melbourne currently under Level 3 lockdown restrictions. You are allowed to stay in a holiday home or private residence and tourist accommodation, including caravan parks and camping grounds where there are no shared communal facilities. However, from July 7, the Vic-NSW border will be closed and patrolled by NSW police. Some state premiers are also recommending you don't travel to Victoria though, given the current outbreaks. Can I go shopping? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Shopping malls and other retail market stores have been closed with previous Stage 3 restrictions in place. Other areas in Victoria. Victorians can shop and many retail stores are now open. Victorians are encouraged to shop locally, avoid large indoor crowds and support businesses in their area. This is under the provision that they follow the 4-meter rule. Can I get a haircut or visit my beauty therapist? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. The hair salon is still considered an essential service, but beauty parlours have been closed under the new restrictions. Other areas in Victoria. Hairdressers and barbers are allowed to be open, but they are required to take your name and contact details. Beauty therapist stores are now open. Up to 20 customers are allowed on one premise, subject to the 4 square meter rule. Providers will still need to lock customers' contact details. When am I allowed to leave my house? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. There are 4 reasons you should leave your house according to the provisions. For work, learn, care, a routine workout, food, and other essentials. Other areas in Victoria. You can go out to shop, to work or study if this cannot be done from home. For fresh air and exercise with a maximum of 80 people and 300 from 19 June. And for recreational purposes and socializing as long as you are observing social distancing. You are only supposed to shop for necessary goods and services. Can I get tested if I haven't been overseas? Victorian Health has announced that anyone with the slightest flu-like symptoms should get tested. If you work with vulnerable people, for example in a nursing home, boarding school, or any other kind of residential facility and you experience any respiratory symptoms, no matter how mild, you must be tested. Can I attend weddings and funerals? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Complete lockdown measures are in place, so it is not possible for the Victorians in these areas to attend a wedding or a funeral. Other areas in Victoria. For outdoor weddings, 20 people are allowed. For funerals, up to 50 are allowed, all while following the 4-meter rule. But a wedding or funeral is held in a home, only 20 people in total will be allowed to attend, including the celebrant and couple and staff. Under Stage 3 rules expected to be introduced in July, attendance limits will require 4 square meters per person. Can I go for a drive? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. It is only advised to go out in only essential situations. Other areas in Victoria. Yes, you can go out for a drive. Are dentists open? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Currently all dental services are closed. Other areas in Victoria. Yes, dental services are now open. Are the pubs open? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. The pubs are currently closed in these areas. Other areas in Victoria. Yes, pubs are allowed to open. Alcohol will only be available to purchase with meals. From July 12, the number of diners allowed will increase to 50. Are schools, TAFE colleges and universities back in session? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Schools will return as usual for years 11, 12 and VCE as well as for special school pupils, but there will be an additional week of holidays for all other schools. Other areas in Victoria. Yes, as of June 9, all students have returned to the classroom. What about cinemas, entertainment venues and museums? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Businesses and services that have been able to reopen in Greater Melbourne such as beauty parlors, gyms, museums, national institutions, historic sites, arcades, amusement parks, zoos, galleries and swimming pools need to close again. Other areas in Victoria: galleries, museums, national institutions, historic sites, amusement parks, zoos, and arcades are allowed to open up to 20 customers per separate space with 4 square meters per person. Drive-in cinemas are also allowed to recommence food and drink operations. From July 12, the number of people allowed in these venues will increase to 50 per separate space. Up to 50 customers will be allowed to watch a film per cinema in movie theaters. Customers not from the same household will have to sit at least 1.5 meters apart, and the 4 square meter rule will apply. Concert venues and theaters will be able to reopen to 50 viewers per separate space. From July 20, electronic gaming at clubs and casinos will restart per social distancing requirements. Can I move house? Metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. Complete lockdown is in place. One cannot move houses in this condition. Other areas in Victoria. You are allowed to move houses but keeping in mind the social distancing rules. What does the Australian government's contact tracing app do? Dubbed COVID Safe, the technology is based on digital contact tracing, modelled on a similar app used in Singapore. Its purpose is to suppress the issue of community transmission, where the infection is spread between people in public. How long will this last? Victoria is currently in stage 3 of a 3-stage process on easing social restrictions advised by the federal government to be rolled out over the next 2 months. However, there is no concrete timeline and the state governments are not required to follow every recommendation. Certain protocols such as physical distancing may be in place for several more months to come. The World Health Organization has warned that relaxing lockdown restrictions too quickly could lead to a resurgence of the outbreak.